What was once a death sentence is now a manageable condition. Is that even believable? That's why we're here tonight. My name is Doug Frankel. I'm a board member for Trovanow. It's my honor to welcome you to tonight's event. The Pancreatic Cancer Early Detection PRECEDE Consortium is an international multi-institutional collaborative group of experts working together for the survival of pancreatic cancer patients through a novel model of collaboration and data sharing. Currently, there are over 44 member institutions now, and it is growing fast. PRECEDE's mission is to transfer the early detection and prevention of pancreatic cancer with the aim of increasing the 5-year survival rate from 10 to 50% within the next 10 years. Trovanow is a nonprofit organization formed in 2020 with the sole purpose to help fund the efforts of the academic PRECEDE Consortium. PRECEDE is a growing international effort to tackle early detection in a way that's never been done before. It is headed by its principal investigator and executive committee chair, Dr. Diane Simeone. She's a member of the PRECEDE's executive committee, and a number of the PRECEDE members are here tonight. Our focus tonight is to engage industry leaders and a philanthropic community to strategically and financially support the public health mission to make pancreatic cancer a disease that is detected early and rendered easily treatable. Trovanow is 100% committed to PRECEDE. As part of that commitment, we recently recruited an industrial advisory board that has been instrumental in providing connections and guidance. Once again, we're just getting started. I'd ask the PRECEDE members, the PRECEDE committee, the Trovanow board members and advisors to please stand and just be recognized. I want to thank you for your tireless efforts in making this vision a reality. I'd also like to share just a few minutes about myself and why I'm here in front of you tonight. My dad died 20 years ago of pancreatic cancer. Soon after, my maternal aunt had the Whipple procedure. She's alive and well at 81 years old, but since my dad died at 57, I've always had a fear of dying early. I've focused on my own health, pursuit of early detection. I've gotten annual scans, evaluations. I've been vigilant. I wanted to catch pancreatic cancer before it caught me. I was introduced to PRECEDE's mission and the Trovanow board by our advisor, Barbara Grinnell, through a close colleague at National Search Associates, where I'm an executive vice president. My position is in executive search and life science. I've focused, since my dad passed, on clinical oncology. All of a sudden, I was introduced to this amazing organization and really felt there was an opportunity personally for me to make a difference. I became directly involved with Trovanow to support PRECEDE after meeting Diane as an interested supporter and also a PRECEDE study participant. After I met Diane and her colleagues at NYU and the board of Trovanow, I was hooked. I accepted a board seat with the ultimate goal of providing an industrial bridge. I knew I could help PRECEDE using the contacts and the friendships that I've made over my 31 years leading executive search in biotech and pharma. Together with my colleagues, we've placed over 400 physicians and scientists across clinical development and translational medicine alone. These relationships have provided tremendous connections to further the mission of PRECEDE. The data sharing across all member institutions is key. It has created a huge opportunity, and you're going to hear more about that this evening. If you like what you hear, please let us know so we can keep you informed and determine how you might best support this important mission. I'd like to introduce tonight's program and the agenda. First, we're going to hear from two very special members of our Trovanow team, and Stu Rickerson and Jamie Brickell, our board president. Both are pancreatic survivors. Next, Diane will give us an overview of PRECEDE and its mission, and then we're going to have some words from our industrial collaborators. First, the CEO of Biological Dynamics, Dr. Paul Billings. As referenced on the program, Tom Shaner, the CEO of Ambry Genetics, could not join us, but we're excited to have Rashid Karam here. Rashid is the head of R&D, clinical and translational medicine, and he will speak on behalf of Ambry Genetics. They'll be followed by 3 members of the aforementioned industrial board that we've formed for Trovanow. Dr. Tracy Pulowski, VP of Clinical Solutions here at Illumina, Dr. Ilya Gipp, the Chief Medical Officer for Philips, and David Slack, the CEO of Send Therapeutics. Finally, and I hope you develop some questions, we're going to bring up the PRECEDE consortium members here tonight to come up and answer your questions before Diane offers some closing remarks, and then we can wrap up and socially get together outside and have a few drinks and enjoy each other's company for an hour. So now it's time to welcome Stu and Jamie up here to say a few words. Thank you.
So I'm going to tell you a little story. About 20 years ago, the 5-year survival rate for pancreatic cancer was just 4%. Today, as you see in the packet, there's a slide that shows that it's now 10%. Yet I truly believe that Trovanow and the work that PRECEDE's going to do in the next few years will have a 5-fold increase in the survival rate before the end of this decade. Why do I think that? Well, you're looking at someone whose pancreatic cancer was accidentally discovered because I had virtually no symptoms. When I went in to see my GP, you may know him, his name is A.J. Foster. Back then, his office was in the middle of Del Mar. Because I was diagnosed early, it hadn't spread yet to other organs. And so that gave the doctors that I was dealing with a lot more options than patients that typically get diagnosed late after it's spread to other vital organs and when surgery is not available. It was at the end of the year. I was looking forward to the beginning of the year that was going to be full of opportunity for me. I had just completed negotiating a sale and getting it wallpapered for the sale of my company, a publicly listed company right here in Sorrento Valley, for $3 billion. And I had a job offer to go on to the next opportunity in my career. But I had some integration work on that deal to finish up an early year. And it was New Year's Eve, and I had the mildest form of indigestion you can imagine. But I didn't want to have the same experience that my 7-year-old had earlier in December when she had violent gastrointestinal issues, and she was given some medicine, and it went away. So on New Year's Eve, I called Dr. Foster, and I said, I know your office is open. Can I come in and see you? And so I did. And I got in there and I said, just give me the pills and I'll take care of this myself. And Dr. Foster, being a good GP, said, well, that's all good, but let me do some tests first. So he ran some blood scans and that kind of thing, and then we went off for the holiday weekend. So a couple days later, I was about to go to a football bowl party, watch party, and I noticed when I was shaving that my eyes were a little yellow. And I was a general counsel, I wasn't a doctor, but I knew yellow means jaundice, jaundice means hepatitis, hepatitis is really bad. So I called up Dr. Foster and I said, would you mind going into the office and checking my blood work? And I've known him a while, so he said he would, and he did. And he called me back and he said, the good news is you don't have hepatitis and your liver function is perfectly normal, but I don't know why you have jaundice. So every other day, for it seemed like a week or so, he did another test, which came back negative, until finally, on January 12th, it was a Wednesday, he called and had me visit a specialist right next door at Scripps. And the Scripps, and as I was walking in, before my butt hit the chair in his office, he said, I'm so sorry, you have pancreatic cancer. Put your affairs in order and go home and hug your family goodbye. So I went home, and I didn't do that. I called up a friend of mine who was a surgeon over here at Scripps, and his name is Paul Hyde. Some of you, I think, know him. And I said, if this were you and you got this diagnosis, what would you do? Who would you call? And he said, well, I probably do as many Whipple surgeries in San Diego as anybody. This was before Andy Lowy. What are you doing next Monday? And I said, I guess I'm coming to see you. And so Monday morning at 7 o'clock a.m., I was rolled in on a gurney and I went through a Whipple surgery, which is a grueling 7 or 8 or 10, whatever number of hours it takes, surgery. And because I was diagnosed early, I had a lot of options. I had chemotherapy, I had radiation, I had subsequent surgeries, but I'm still here. My daughter, that little girl that was 7 years old back then, last month I saw her graduate from the college of her dreams. And it's because of early detection. If you can help Trovanow get early detection that ideally would be inexpensive and not too invasive, then we would save tens of thousands of lives of Americans every year. Early detection will allow many more patients to survive and many more families to stay intact. Early detection, in my view, will change the course of medicine in the country in the field of pancreatic cancer. That's Trovanow's goal. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Jamie Brickell, and I want to tell you all what I'm thankful for. I'm thankful that my wife and I, Elisa, are going to celebrate our 38th anniversary next week. I'm thankful that my 2 grown children and their spouses are doing well, and we have our first grandchild on her way. I am thankful that I've met all the nice people from Trovanow over the last year, and they've asked me to act as president of Trovanow for the immediate future. But for your purposes, what I'm most thankful about is that when I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer 2 years ago, my friend Debbie introduced me to Diane Simeone. And when you first hear that you have pancreatic cancer, you pretty much think it's a death sentence, no matter what they tell you. And Diane was amazing in explaining to me what was involved, and explaining to me that I was lucky because it was discovered early. I was one of the lucky people who actually had symptoms. I started having trouble eating. I started having trouble digesting my food. I lost 40 pounds. And I didn't know what it was from, and it turned out that I had a tumor that was blocking my bile duct. And as a result, none of the enzymes could digest my food. And so almost immediately after meeting Diane, we started chemotherapy. After 3 months, we had the Whipple operation, 3 more months of chemo. And I'm happy to say that the surgery was less than 2 years ago, and I've now gone through 7 clean 3-month scans since the surgery. So the reason why they've asked me to talk is because I am the poster child for early detection. I'm what people can actually have in their lives if there's a way of finding it early. There's a lot of great organizations out there that are trying to find a cure for pancreatic cancer, and they're wonderful and they will find success one day. But what Diane and the people at Trovanow and PRECEDE are focusing on is we know how to fix people if we find them early enough. If we find it before it's spread to other organs, before it's spread to the lymph nodes, then we can perform the surgery and the chemo can keep the cancer at bay. So I am thankful for that. I am delighted to be working with the people from Trovanow, and I would really encourage you to help however you can, because this is a great organization and it's going to change the world. So thank you.
Wow, what a room. It's amazing. I'm so glad to be here. My name is Diane Simeone. I'm a pancreatic surgeon and research scientist, faculty at NYU, and All of the clinicians here and scientists in the room are my friends. And I've been working on pancreatic cancer for a while. And what I've come to realize is there shouldn't be a factor of luck and who comes out on the other side of it. You know, you met amazing people like Stuart or Jamie that came in and speak to us, but they're the lucky ones. We have many, many patients who aren't so lucky. As surgeons, many of you know Andy and George Zagopoulos, also a talented pancreatic surgeon here in the room. You know, we have the opportunity to resect pancreatic tumors, but most of the time when it's a resectable tumor, the tumor is actually pretty good size, 2.5, 3 centimeters in size, sometimes involving major blood vessels. And even with technically, you know, perfect operation, still the risk of recurrence is high. And that's only the minority of patients that are candidates for surgery. So what's become clear to me is the way we need to drive survival for this disease is early detection. And what we're going to present to you is a strategy to do this in a really meaningful and impactful way that hasn't really been done before. So you've heard about the PRECEDE consortium, and this really started 3 or 4 years ago when, you know, I was just sitting back thinking, like, how are we actually going to change survival for pancreatic cancer? And it's not that we haven't had a lot of people working on it. You know, all kinds of talented people at institutions around the country. What I would say is the effort was not as organized, coordinated, or performed at the scale that it needed to be. And now that I'm getting more advanced in my career, I really wanted to see something dramatic happen, and that's why we formulated the concept of the PRECEDE consortium. So what we have established is a collaborative research effort, and now it has over 40 centers, and really we get emails almost every week from some center around the world or country to join to really make an impact, which we know we're only going to do most effectively together. It's really to go after early detection. It's a whole different ball game when we resect a tumor that's 1 centimeter or less. There's actually recent data and growing body of data if people are going to be at risk for getting pancreatic cancer and they do so, then if we resect small tumors, the 5-year survival rate is in the 75–80% range. It's a very different game for patients if we do that. And so what I would propose to you, if we make a large-scale investment of our time and effort to shift the whole story of pancreatic cancer so we're picking it up early, then that will drive significant enhanced survival. So how do we do that? It's really going to be through a novel method of working together. So with this consortium, we set the goal to get to a 50% survival in 10 years. And I remember when I said that out loud, I had a number of people say to me, Simeone, what the hell are you talking about? I mean, that's not attainable. But I respectfully disagree, because we all know and we've all witnessed that when there's an emergency, when there's a crisis, you can get things done. Just look how we accomplished getting effective COVID vaccines within a very short period of time, when it wasn't about whose idea it was or whose data it belonged to. It's like we have a worldwide crisis and we have to solve it. So now that we're solving COVID, I'm going to put this forth as our next national emergency to get to early detection for pancreas cancer. And the way we're going to do it is sharing data and working together. So with the PRECEDE consortium, our goal is really to answer 3 questions that in my mind we have not answered sufficiently, and they're very simple ones. Who's at risk? Even as well as we know about some of the risk factors, half of the people I see in clinic with a new pancreas cancer, I do not know why they have it. 2, what is the risk? We still don't have good data understanding what the risk is for folks. And then 3rd, what are we going to do about it? And that's where I think we have to really bring people together in a whole other level, have people who have never thought or worked on pancreatic cancer start working on it with us. So with this project, there's a number of different aims. So of course, the holy grail, if you will, is to have an early detection blood test or imaging test or some kind of composite test for early detection. But we also need to understand the genetics of pancreatic cancer, the risk factors. Can we be a lot more smarter about figuring out who needs testing and screening? Also, for people who have pancreas cancer in their families, when we test for the genes we know that are out there, 85% of the time we don't get a hit. And that's because we have not done deep, comprehensive work on understanding the heritable component of pancreatic cancer. And that is something that is going to be addressed with this consortium. And what I would tell you is we, as a collective working group, are best positioned worldwide to do this. Just trying to advance it here. So what we have assembled are a number of centers working together where we have standardized collection of clinical data, laboratory data, imaging, everybody doing things a similar way. And our goal is to assemble 10,000 high-risk individuals across all our centers in the next 5 years, and then we're going to be performing a 10-year study. For centers to join, they have to have their act together. They have to have a team. They have to be able to collect blood samples and data. And here's the key. You cannot join this effort unless you agree up front to share data. That's really critical. And it would seem like that would be obvious, but it doesn't happen as much as you think it should. And so here, by mandating it and having everybody work together, it really is going to be a game changer. So we've been working on this for about the last 3 years. We do have an organizational structure. We have executive committee, lots of people. We probably have a couple hundred people working on this now. Arbor Research serves as a data coordinating center. They coordinate data for a number of the consortia around the country that are funded by the NIH. These are the centers that are active now, and you can see that in some sites we have multiple centers. This is what I anticipate will happen in the next year. I expect in 1 year's time we'll have 50 centers active across the United States. We also are having centers from around the world reach out. Just as one example, the head of the National Cancer Institute in Japan reached out to me. They have 40,000 pancreatic cancer cases a year in Japan. It's half the population of the US. They have absolutely no testing or screening for pancreas cancer in Japan. So with the requirement to join PRECEDE that they have to do genetic testing and screening, they are now going to be implementing that at their National Cancer Center in Japan and start to the important work to understand why is there so much pancreatic cancer in that country. As you can see, other countries around the world are starting to join. We comprehensively collect data on anybody who might come into clinic worried about their risk for pancreatic cancer. So we have a number of different cohorts. I won't go into all the details here, but just so that you know, if anybody comes in our clinic, we collect data so we can scientifically study and understand these patients. We have also recently included patients with cystic tumors, which are pretty common, and that is a path to pancreatic cancer, albeit an uncommon one, but lots of patients have cystic tumors and we need to understand them better as well. So with this project, the first site opened was actually our site at NYU in May of 2020. And right now we have 26 actively enrolling centers with other centers being onboarded from a regulatory standpoint. In about 2 years' time, we have almost 3,000 patients in. Just put that in mind that that's in the middle of a pandemic. You'd be hard-pressed to find any project in the United States that has accumulated patients at this pace. And what I would say is there's a compelling interest by patients in this project around the country and increasingly worldwide. And this is just a graph. Look at the slope. And as more centers enter, it's really going to take off. And right now we're enrolling about 150 patients a month. And we do expect that we'll have 10,000 participants within 5 years and be going from there. Let me go back. This is a paper we wrote, it was published last year, where we basically said we need to set new standards for the field. We made recommendations for a more organized and effective approach for the early detection of pancreas cancer. This paper has been circulated widely nationally and has garnered a lot of interest. We have a number of other papers that are being published. There are probably 12 to 14 different projects that are already underway answering different research questions that are based on the growing data set that we have. And very interesting, we have scientists that have never worked on pancreatic cancer in different fields that, because of this resource, are coming forward. I just want to highlight one industry partnership that we've developed, and this started last year, and it's called the PRECEDE Lattice Partnership, and Lattice is actually 4 different companies listed here. Realm, which is partners with Ambry Genetics and Invicro, and then AWS. And with this partnership, and Rashida's here from Ambry, and we actually just had a meeting for the last 2 days about this collaboration. Ambry Genetics has made a really dedicated effort to increase the depth and the quality of genetic testing for pancreatic cancer at a level that no other group is doing. And with the support of AWS, they've provided a free data cloud in which all the data for these 10,000 participants, including, it's all de-identified, but including all the longitudinal imaging data, will be put in a PRECEDE data cloud and stored there for the next 10 years. Such a data set will be the largest data set ever assembled around pancreas cancer, and it will be shared with the research community to study. So in conclusion, I'm putting forth to you that we need a new strategy to collectively move the needle to impact survival for pancreatic cancer. We have put a lot of effort into PRECEDE because I do believe this is a transformational project to do such that. Understanding the contribution of genetics and cystic tumors to the incidence of pancreatic cancer is a very large unmet need. And through this effort, which is very high quality data acquisition, longitudinal imaging, collection of biosamples, which can be shared to develop early detection tests. This is going to be a game changer for our field and change the pace and the scale at which we execute change. So in summary, I do feel that this is a unique, unparalleled opportunity to reimagine how we tackle pancreatic cancer together and can have a measured impact during our lifetime. This is the group. I'm telling you, this project with PRECEDE, this is the group, and now is the time. Thank you very much. So I'd like to invite Paul to come up and give us a few words.
It's hard to follow, Diane. Wow, that's a hard act to follow, don't you think? But I do want to say on behalf of my board and all my staff at Biological Dynamics, thank you, Diane. Thank you, PRECEDE Consortium. Thank you, Trovanow. Thank you for what you're doing and what you're trying to do and for letting us participate and help in that effort. Biological Dynamics, where I'm the CEO, is a novel, new, inexpensive, and fast way to analyze components of the blood and make early disease diagnosis. Everyone knows that early disease diagnosis improves outcomes and the quality of life in many conditions. Pancreatic cancer, why we're all here, is a very good example of that, I think. It's not a common disorder, PDAC, but there are tens of thousands of patients and family members who are being identified as at higher risk for PDAC via determination of their family history, germline genetic testing, imaging procedures, or the new onset of insulin-dependent diabetes. For these higher risk families and patients, for this cohort, the disease is not rare. If you look at stage 1 PDACs, pancreatic ductal adenocarcinomas, and with the development of our tests so far, the sensitivity of our test for stage 1 disease is 95%, and the negative predictive value is also above 95%. That's far better than currently available testing. It's also far better than the standard of care. It's an improvement, and we're going to get better. So this year, we will begin to offer assessments for patients and family members at higher risk for PDAC. We hope to help these families as they mix the standard of care with the information from our testing. And in turn, we hope they help us by participating in our research. And thus, we will improve our platform, the way we do our test, and improve the markers in our test so that we can detect better and at a more affordable price. I've dedicated my career to the study of genetic factors in clinical disorders. The ability of this test to link people at high genetic risk, for instance, with a precise early disease detection platform is just so meaningful to me, is such a change, and will provide such a great boon to the families who have been identified at higher risk. It's incredibly meaningful for me, and I hope now for my company. Let me conclude then with a personal story. My sister-in-law is a professor at Harvard University. She has a family history of PDAC. Her mother and her aunt both died of it. She had a variant of uncertain significance on a germline test several years ago. For 5 or more years, she traveled down to Johns Hopkins, where she had semi-annual images and endoscopic ultrasounds. Lesions were noted over time, and many biopsies were done of those lesions, none particularly conclusive. After lots of consultation, she decided to have a Whipple. Her Whipple was normal. There was no cancer in the pancreas, the part of the pancreas that was removed. I don't want any more of those types of cases to occur. I want more families and more individuals to have their PDAC identified early and cured. More at-risk families to be reassured. Even one family relieved or saved would be meaningful to me. Biological Dynamics is here to make that vision with you a reality as quickly as we can. Thank you.
It was great. I think the work that Biological Dynamics is doing is spectacular. I've been watching them for a number of years. I'm Tracy Pulowski. I'm the head of clinical solutions at Illumina. Illumina, if you're not aware, is headquartered here in San Diego, and we're the largest provider of genomic sequencing equipment in the world. I'm also on the Trovanow industry board, which I'm very happy to be on. Doug is a very convincing fellow. And I'm excited for the work that Diane is doing. She's doing the hard work of putting all of these research groups together so that a company like mine, Illumina, where our mission is to improve human health through the power of the genome, we can do that. We have technical experts, deep sequencing expertise, analysis expertise, but we don't have hospitals, we don't have doctors. So it's great to work with Diane. Our medical research group is doing a pilot study with Diane to look at families who have had pancreatic cancer and look for more genes that may be risk factors. The other thing we can get from a study like this are there new genetic pathways, biological pathways that we didn't know about that could help us make new drugs in the future. I'm excited to work with Diane. We're excited at Illumina to work with PRECEDE, and look forward to the discoveries that we will make. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rashid Karam. I'm the Executive Director of Clinical and Translational Research at Embry Genetics. For those of you that don't know Embry, we are a genetic testing laboratory. We are located in Orange County in Elizeu Bairro. And what we do, we test for genes that predispose people to hereditary cancer, such as familial pancreatic cancer. And this is such an important tool for early detection, because in the moment you detect a mutation in a gene such as, for example, BRCA1, BRCA2, you know that those individuals are at high risk of developing diseases such as pancreatic cancer. And those are the individuals that we can focus on to implement measures that will allow us to detect those tumors as early as possible when they are treatable, when they are curable, right? And hence why we are so excited to work with the PRECEDE consortium. As Diane was saying, we were just all together at Elizeu Bairro at our headquarters to discussing the first year of our collaboration with the consortium. And I can tell you that in just 1 year, we have already implemented a very important study that we call in the GPS, the genetic predisposition study, where we are aiming at identifying more people at high risk. And we have very exciting results. Just 1 year, we are already seeing approximately an increase in people that we are detecting with mutations in genes that predispose to pancreatic cancer. And at the meeting where we were discussing how we can do more, and we had very exciting discussions about what projects we can implement to help to improve this even further. And I'm very confident that we are on the right path to achieve this very ambitious goal, which is to increase the 5-year survival from PDAC from the current 10% to 50%. But one thing it's very clear to us, it's that we will only be able to do that by working together. It's academic centers, industry, and the community. We all need to work together to be able to implement such ambitious goals. So thank you everyone for being here, and thank you for the opportunity to work with you.
Good evening. My name is Ilya Gipp. I'm the medical officer for oncology for Philips. And I would like to give a short patient story. A lot's been said on the personal examples, and I'm a radiologist, even though working for Philips. But this patient story started back in 2008 when doing a routine CT exam, primarily focusing on the kidneys. We have discovered a lesion in the pancreas. Now, it was caught early enough, so cancer was resected, so the patient kept the larger part of the pancreas, and it gave her 12 years of quality life being cancer-free. Believe it or not, it's hard to imagine, but not impossible. Last year, back in April, so routine cancer alertness PET-CT revealed another lesion in the rest of the pancreas, which was once again resected and again caught early, so that the patient kept still the larger part of the pancreas and did not even develop any glucose intolerance, which was very good. Well, this patient is my mother, and actually having her alive and well is, like Dr. Simeone mentioned, is a luck. She's very lucky to be alive. From a diagnostic imaging standpoint, because a lot of imaging was involved in this story, so many modalities, MR, ultrasound, CT, PET-CT, can help detect pancreatic cancer early. That's a trivial task. However, perfectly selecting patients and being able to do this for the right patients and risk assessment, that is a difficult task, and therefore I would like to quote a document, a recent one, that was revised just less than 1 month ago from cdc.gov. And I'm reading the quote. "Screening for pancreatic cancers has not been shown to reduce deaths." In other words, even though pancreatic cancer today being the 3rd biggest contributor to the mortality in the U.S., it is the largest cancer by mortality that does not have available screening. which actually means that as of today, incidental detection is patients' only chance to get diagnosed earlier. If I translate this means that our hope is mainly a pure chance or pure luck. I know that there is something we can do. Let me rephrase that. I know that there is something we must do. So when I had a chance to join the team, I did not need to think twice. So Trovanow, in their endeavor, in their mission to support PRECEDE, it's as a radiologist, as a representative of a healthcare industry, I'd like to repeat what's already been said here, is that there is a great promise, and there is a great potential, and there is a possibility to reduce the burden of pancreatic cancer. It takes science, it takes research, it takes collaboration, takes changing guidelines potentially, takes awareness, but all is just a task. So as long as we all join efforts, this mission is totally possible. So I sincerely believe this journey is going to be exciting. So from the industry side, I might not yet know what we can do, whether this is going to be a more affordable imaging equipment with greater sensitivity, more precise, whether it's going to be tools that can help correlate the data between the pathology, molecular pathology, imaging. But one thing I know for sure is that PRECEDE and Trovanow's got everything necessary to solve this problem. So this is the partnership that is set for the success, and I'm urging everyone to join us, and I thank you for your attention.
So, good evening. I'm David Slack. I'm the CEO at Send Therapeutics, and I'm also pleased to be on the Industry Advisory Board for Trovanow. So our company is advancing into phase 2 trials for stage 4 pancreatic cancer. We have a new treatment approach that addresses a couple of the major issues that make this disease so difficult to treat. Our investigational drug targets the tumor and essentially converts what is normally the primary impediment to effective treatment with drugs, the stroma or the capsule around the tumor, into a conduit for more effective delivery. We also hope that we enable the patient's immune system and/or immunotherapies to more effectively fight the disease. However, as a drug company, we do not address one of the other major issues that make this such an insidious disease, the lack of early detection. Now, as a company, we want to do what's best for our patients. What's best for our patients will be best for us. That's why we support Trovanow and PRECEDE. I should also tell you in my background, earlier in my career, I was on the genomics task force for a major pharma company. And our task was to figure out how to access these emerging technologies and all the information coming out of the Human Genome Project to make better drugs. So based on that experience, I can tell you that no one company, no one organization can make this happen. Whoops. Sorry, I screwed the screen up. The only way that we're going to make this progress is to combine forces, treating physicians and academic researchers, government organizations, the NIH and the National Cancer Institute, and industry have to work together. And this requires a consortium approach that Diane and the PRECEDE team have pulled together. It involves patients and families. It collects samples of tissues and bloods from patients all around the world and houses them in repositories. It enables access to them by some of the amazing technologies that are represented by the previous speakers in the room. And with that, only through the data sharing requirement are we going to be able to pull together all the pieces of the puzzle to address early detection satisfactorily to achieve these goals. So, and to make this happen in our lifetimes, we cannot count on the government to provide all the funding. And no single company can take on this charter. We have the right people to make this happen, and we're bringing to bear amazing technologies. But to realize Diane's vision and our shared vision, we need the support of good people like you who've come to this room this evening. By working together, I believe we can achieve the objectives that Diane laid out for PRECEDE, and I hope that you can follow up with Doug or Debbie or some of the other Trovanow crew to see what you can do to help as well. So with that, I'd just like to thank you for coming out this evening, and now I'd like to turn it back to Diane, who I believe will have a Q&A session and some discussion. I'll let you decide which slides to put up.
So while that was really, I want to give a shout out to all our industry colleagues, amazing partners, and as David just said, it's none of us are going to accomplish this alone. You have all these academics working very hard. You have patients who are compelled to participate in this. We have colleagues who are leading advances in the tech sector and the NIH, but no one entity is going to solve this. So here we're making the case for how we need your help to tackle this. And here are my colleagues, and this is, we're all very, very good friends, and all of us and beyond us, there are dozens and actually hundreds of people putting in lots and lots of time to try to make this work. So I welcome you to ask questions to Rosie, who's at OHSU, basic scientist, who's the head of the Pancreatic Cancer Center there, Andy, who's head of surgery oncology at UCSD, and George Zagopoulos, who's a very talented pancreatic surgeon and genomics expert at McGill University. So happy to answer any questions if anybody wants to kick it off. Yeah. We have a...
I can speak up.
Yeah, please.
My name is Mark. I'm also associated with biological dynamics. My questions have to do with the structure of the institution. Is participation by a given cancer center or university, does that assure access to the repository? Number two, are there any aspects of open access for the smaller researchers who aren't in the Titan organization? And thirdly, is there any revenue model? I ask principally because even philanthropists don't want to have a chronic disease, right? You know, they're going to want to have something that's up and running and growing. That's what I'd like to ask.
Okay, so you're testing us, you start asking 3 or 4 questions. So the first one is about if someone joins, so they have guaranteed access to the samples. And the answer is yes, with an asterisk. And that being is we know that for the patients who are being followed that are high risk, there's going to be just a subset of those patients that are going to develop pancreatic cancer. So the key here is having longitudinal samples that are collected, and when a test is ready for prime time to really see if it's going to predict the development of pancreatic cancer in a timely manner, then those samples can be accessed. In the meantime, I'll say many of the companies that work on early detection blood tests, they may have a test that looks great when you compare normal versus cancer, or maybe normal versus stage 1 or 2 pancreatic cancer, but you also need to see how it performs, and that the signal is not just due to diabetes or not just due to inflammation. And so you have to have other important controls. So in the early detection pancreatic cancer space, there's actually some intermediate steps that are critical. And what I would say is for companies that need that help to be able to test something in the precious longitudinal samples, we all have very robust biorepositories that companies can access, and we help them with that. And I'll toss it over to Rosie, and she'll give you her comment on that.
So I guess the comment is that yes, as being part of PRECEDE, we all are sharing data and we're sharing samples. We all have to, put aside a specific amount for PRECEDE. in all of our biobanks. We're looking to collaborate with anybody, even if they're small. So, and also, as soon as anything is published, it's always in the public domain for anybody to reach. And with our partnership with AWS and Ambry, they're all talking about how we make all of this data, and all the algorithms for analyzing the data available for all the scientists in the world to go after and try and say, can they come up with a better signature or a better predictor? So I think the sharing is really there. And I guess just to follow up on that idea a little bit, so we, like Diane said, we just came from a PRECEDE meeting. And I just wanted to share one little thing. So one of my kids, I was talking to, my kids are grown, one of my kids said to me, how was your meeting? I said it was great. They're like, well, was it like other meetings? Because I've been going to meetings for decades now, and they've grown up and with me going to meetings. And I said, well, actually, no, it wasn't. It was very different. The scientists in the room were kind of the minority, or at least the academic scientists. And there was a bunch of scientists in industry, and so we were all talking together about how to solve this problem, and that's very different from a normal type of academic meeting. And I really want to applaud Diane for this vision of really collaborating across the spectrum of academia, industry, pharma. I'm very excited to be part of it.
The only thing I would add is that the collaborative nature of the consortium extends to every tentacle of decision making, so that when specimens are requested, Diane's not deciding, yes, I'll give you specimens, or Rosie, or there's a committee that's going to look at the intended use and the data that underpins the request, and then a collective decision that we feel is best for the community will be made. And I think that's the principle which the consortium is founded on.
So I think everything has been well said, but maybe sort of to add to what there's sharing and there's the opportunity to contribute back. So if you have a technology, the invitation is to come and contribute that technology. I think what we're looking at is to build an array. So a heat map for those of us that are in the array world. So you have to make a complete heat map, and we need several technologies to characterize that data very well. And for the broader community, it's what we discussed earlier, what Rashid brought up, this concept of this lattice cloud. How powerful is that? You have a complete heat map, and that at some point will become accessible, to the broader community. And my goal, my dream would be that each patient that contributes at some point, if we work out the logistics behind it, could access their own data as well.
Can I ask one follow-on?
Yeah.
Has there been any consideration to aggregating, thank you, the current baskets of repositories for pancreatic cancer? I don't know whether PanCan was doing that or something similar, others similar.
Yeah, there are various efforts doing that, and we've all contributed to them. In fact, dating back, 10 or 12 years, actually Randy Brand, who's not here, but is one of the members of our executive committee, and I set up a program that centers could contribute samples of stage 1 pancreatic cancer. Collectively, we had about 8 or 10 centers, and we gave half of the samples at all of our centers to the NIH. So if a company had, or an individual or center had a viable test where they had gone through the various stages of biomarker validation, the final stage to look at whether it really had legs to detect stage 1 pancreatic cancer, there was an adequate size testing training set at the NIH. So we have done some of that. And a lot of us have research programs at our individual centers, and some of the samples stay at our individual centers for various research projects, but we all share very broadly, and we've all contributed to large biorepositories. PanCan doesn't own such a biorepository, Not all these samples are all in one place, but with PRECEDE in 40 centers, any set of biosamples that anyone needed to begin validating a biomarker, we are committed to helping that company or institution solve that.
And I would just add that even though we all have biorepositories and you can apply to the NIH for some of these, getting the clinical data, all the metadata that goes along with those samples that makes them so valuable, right? If you don't really know what the samples are that you're testing, like deeply, like what's the smoking history, what's the diabetes, alcohol use. So that's kind of one of the beauties of PRECEDE, is because we're not just sharing specimens, we're sharing all of the clinical data. All of the patients are put into the same database, and all of the fields are easily accessible and searchable. And so that is huge. And that's what's going to allow these big cohort studies that will allow us to say, how is this test performing? Can we use it in a sieved approach? Which test do you do first that then leads to the next one that's cost effective and actually really will bring the survival rate to 50% or higher.
Yeah, I mean, the principle of combining existing database, existing biobanks is obviously appealing, but there's tremendous medical legal hurdles to that, because those samples are collected under specific patient protection, protocols, and you can't just override them. Patients have to be reconsented. It's just a nightmare. So this effort, obviously, because we have a common IRB, everybody is collecting under the same, guidelines. Patients are signing the same consents. That's what makes this tractable.
I have a question. My name is Ramin Portemor. I was just wondering, I'm the F student in this class, so is there a way that you could also explain this in non-scientific language? How can people that are non-researchers or doctors understand how to test, how to find out about this pancreatic cancer? And a little bit of a basic 101 education for those of us that want to know but don't understand the degree that you guys understand what we can do to help you, as well as how can we solve this problem together by understanding it. Thanks.
So we do have a website, precedestudy.org, and there is information, for example, about what all the PRECEDE sites are around the country. And this is actually really important, because if we see somebody, for example, in New York City, and they're going to get tested and screened, but they have a sibling that lives in San Diego, then we've done this already several times. In fact, where's Doug? Yeah, so when Doug called me and he told me he lived in this area, I said, well, you need to go to UCSD, right? So we have connectors across, so we can basically plug any patient in the United States in with the center that we know has expertise. Even beyond the PRECEDE centers, we know who everybody is, and we help any patient. So you can actually just get on the website and say, I need help, I have a question, and there's a place you can put your question and we will get back to you. There's also videos on the website, and we all do talks and seminars, so if you go to the website, it'll start to explain some of this, and we're happy to if there's an interest, to have follow-up materials or conversations about just understanding the landscape, about risk factors for pancreatic cancer, what you can do, how you can find out. I mean, obviously the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network has done a good job with their advocacy program. If someone has pancreatic cancer, is looking for treatments, they have a very good clinical trial resource. But I would say this group, this effort is probably your go-to place for understanding risk, screening, testing for pancreatic cancer.
Yeah, I'll just add, the way I'm thinking about it, there's kind of two avenues. There's people who know they have risk. There's family risk, or they already know there's genetic risk. And so PRECEDE is right there already, right? So Diane said, you can be referred to wherever you live because there's so many places around the country. But it's a lot more than that because, like with our partnership with Ambry Genetics, for example, we just had this meeting because so many people, we don't know why. There's all these families, and it's clear there's something going on, but we don't know what that gene is. And so we just, concluded our discussion, and we're going to be doing whole genome sequencing on all of the samples that are coming from all of the people that are enrolled in PRECEDE, and all of these families and non-families, people and also including people who got pancreatic cancer, and we don't really know why. And so that's going to actually teach the whole community about new risk factors, new genetic risk factors that we could score, and then we can expand screening to more and more people because we'll understand the basis of the disease, which we still don't understand. So there's going to be a huge discovery part of this in addition to just right now you could come and be part of the screening.
And really, in thinking about like how you tackle early detection, the reason we went this route is all these folks that are at high risk, they're going to get tested and screened in longitudinal imaging, and this is where we're going to have the breakthroughs for early detection that if we do it right, then will be applicable to the broad population. That is the path we seek to pursue. Yep.
So, once you establish the test, will you be able to, do you think you'll be able to use it for other types of cancer? Or, I know each cancer is almost like a sort of disease, so how does that,
Yeah, I'll just comment, just because I'm holding it. Many of the genes, the risk genes for pancreatic cancer are also risk genes for breast cancer, ovarian cancer, melanoma. And so in that sense, the people that are being screened in PRECEDE, have that. Many of the types of technology that are being developed and applied, like Biodyne, that Paul talked about, that whole idea of sequestering things from the blood and looking for a signature of proteins in the blood that might indicate you have cancer can apply widely. The genetic screening can apply widely. So I think we need to understand the biology so we can tailor the test, but all of the stuff that's being built, the technology, will be applicable.
Although I will say that we don't know if it will all perform the same or as well for the early detection of pancreatic cancer. So I just want to put that little asterisk to it. And the only way we know is to prove it or disprove the value of each test. And I actually like the idea, since we will have such this large cohort, to test any test that's out there, either in isolation or in combination, because it may be that it's not just one test that it's needed, but it could be that a panel is needed. And also we're in this new revolution about machine learning and artificial intelligence, and having world's experts in AI have access to this data set and mine it. I mean, we don't know who's going to solve the problem for us. I always say if we can land on Mars, we should be able to detect the 3-millimeter pancreatic cancer. We just don't have the right people at the table yet. By building this, we're welcoming the entire scientific community to come to the table and work on pancreatic cancer.
Hi, my name is Raj Grover. I'm on the board of director of American Nutrition Association, America's top science-based nutrition organization. You just mentioned about going to Mars and solving, the problem of understanding Mars. So what are the lifestyle factors you would say that contributes to pancreatic cancer that we understand today? Number one. Number two, if the year is 2030, what would be the protocol to have 100% survival rate for this cancer? Thank you.
Yes, so one of the problems is there aren't a lot of modifiable lifestyle factors that affect pancreas cancer. There are a few. Smoking is clearly a risk factor. It's not as profound a risk factor as it is, for instance, for lung cancer, but it is clearly a modifiable risk factor. And the second one that really probably underpins a lot of the increase in pancreas cancer incidence is obesity. And we know that that is a significant risk factor for pancreas cancer. Alcohol, which people talk about a lot, in most studies, it's really a fairly weak risk factor unless it results in patients getting chronic inflammation of their pancreas over long periods of time. But unfortunately, there aren't huge numbers of things that people can do. And obviously, it's hard to quit smoking, it's hard to lose weight, and so, realistically, that's not going to make the impact in getting rid of pancreas cancer that we would like. And so that's why this effort is even more important. The average person who comes, to our office who's diagnosed with pancreas cancer doesn't smoke, is not necessarily obese, doesn't always have a clear family history. And that's the hard thing when the patient, looks at us and says, why did I get this? And the answer is, we don't know. We often think about, well, if someone has a genetic alteration that imbues susceptibility, well, that's why they got pancreas cancer. But the fact is, if you have a mutation in one of the breast cancer genes, the odds are very low that you'll ever get pancreas cancer. So why do some people get it and why don't others get it? And that's one of the most important things about this consortium, and what we're going to try to learn is what are the other genes that are present in those people that get pancreas cancer versus the ones who don't, so that we can develop these patterns, which you need huge data sets to be able to do, to answer these questions. So we can really pick out the people we think are at the highest risk, and the better we can do that, the more effective all the screening tests will be.
I mean, I'll add to it in a slightly different flavor, and I want to go back to, I think you deserve a grade A rather than a grade F. And it's why do this? Why is this important? And I would say that the majority of the effort in pancreas cancer research is on therapeutics. The problem is that by the time the diagnosis is made, and the effective therapeutic is made, you could penetrate that stroma. Problem is that the disease has launched itself somewhere else, and the therapy may be effective locally where the cancer started, not somewhere else. So it does go back to the early detection, to try to detect it early, where you could have this advantage. And I think what we would like from you is to, as a community, to stand up and say that that's important. And yes, we need to identify new therapies, but we also need to identify ways to detect it earlier, understand the genetic risk, because that may make a difference. We could applaud the 5 to 10% increase that I have seen over my lifetime in medicine over the last 20 years, but it's not great. We're still failing at 10%. And I think what Diane is putting up to go to 50%, that's a win. And I don't think that focusing just on effective therapies will get us to 50%. And lastly, I would say along the way, we're going to define perhaps new ways to understand or identify the new hereditary risks for pancreas cancer. And the most effective therapies that we have for pancreas cancer, targeted therapies, precision medicine, personalized medicine are what? Are against pancreas cancers that are caused by hereditary mutations, by the BRCA1, BRCA2 mutations, and in a syndrome called Lynch syndrome, where immunotherapy has worked effectively. And there's going to be a byproduct of all of this. In screening all of these families, we're going to identify genes that will put patients into other preventative programs for breast cancer and prostate cancer, and those have been shown to save lives. even though we have a lot of work to show in regards to how screening could help save pancreas cancer lives.
Hey, hi. So my name is Jeff Gare from New York, actually New Jersey, so don't mess with me. But Diane, I've known you a long time. I just wanted to thank you for your effort and your leadership here and everybody in the room who's helping. And just wanted to address what I think we can do to help, a couple of things, and George, your point, and everybody's comments earlier. But first of all, whenever we know or hear something from anybody who may have pancreatic cancer in their family or directly or indirectly, we can talk to Diane or anybody we know in the field and sort of help stir the pot and get the word out. And Diane, maybe you'll want to make a comment about our friend Gigi in Florida and how that happened from nothing and all of a sudden turned into a very important case, and you probably did save a life there. And secondly, another thing I believe that we can do, and this hasn't really come up, but it should, is contributing financially. And as a tax lawyer, I can tell you that money matters. And I've contributed in the past to this, and I'm going to give $1,000 today just for being here, and I'll do more in the future. But I just wanted to quantify this a little bit because we don't really do that as much as we should, and everybody should try to figure out a way to contribute financially. I think that's important. So thank you. And just looking at the agenda, I saw that the 7:15 item is gastronomy and libations, and I was going to leave. It made me nervous, but then I realized it's food and drinks, so decided to stay. Thank you.
So thanks for your comment, Jeff, and just want to, listen, these are some of my best friends. We all work so hard together and have for so long to really make a difference in pancreatic cancer. I hope you can see the passion and this is representative of our entire team across the country and growing around the world. I want to thank Doug and and Jamie and the leadership of Trovanow. These are all patient advocates that assembled themselves and said, we think what you're doing is important. They're putting all this together to help us raise awareness and funds to support this. And want to thank all of you for donating your Friday evening to come and your interest. And hopefully we can all go on this journey together. And we're going to remember this night of where we sat here, and then we're going to say, I remember when we first started this, and look what we actually accomplished. So have a great night, and I think we're on to having some more conversation and drinks and hors d'oeuvres. Thank you very much.